Right. While that's been worked on, I'd like to thank the North Canberra Community Council for letting us present today. And I join with the University of Canberra in acknowledging country and our respect for the elders and ongoing culture of Aboriginal people. Here we go. Right. Casey, it's up. Great.
It is excellent. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tanya Parks. I'm a social planner working with the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. With me, as you have heard, is Casey Gregory, who's the Manager of Planning and Implementation. And also is John De Margheriti, who is the Chairman and CEO of the AIE. So we're here today to talk about updates to what's called the Future Intentions Plan. The AIE has had an agreement with the ACT government since 2018. Which is secured by a future intentions plan, which is like a master plan. In November 2020, we went out to the community to consult on that plan and got feedback, and the AIE was responding to that feedback. But then, as you know, COVID hit, and there were external market forces that has impacted the EI's development timeline. So this presentation today is to inform you of the updates to the Future Intentions Plan, so the changes from what was presented to you in 2020 to now, and to get some discussion going and get your feedback. So John will talk about the aims of the AIE, and through that you'll understand some of the priorities of how the building stages have changed. It was originally a three-stage process and still is a three-stage process, but there are changes to the stages. Casey will take you through the proposed changes to the Future Intentions Plan, and at the end I will follow up with our consultation program. I can send you, Ian, a PDF of our presentation, so you can have it for your members. Casey, I'll turn over to you. Oh, sorry, no, John. John next. Are you there, John?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I don't have any ability to change the slides, so I might just say next slide when we get to it. Yeah, so the project itself really has been birthed. It's been a long time coming for Canberra. And so I might talk a little bit about the Academy and what we are, right? So we're a not-for-profit, we're a tax-exempt body, and we've got campuses across Australia and the US. In the US, we're a charity, and we've got campuses in Seattle and Louisiana as well. And we literally work with government, but we were birthed in Canberra. And this was done through a partnership with CIT. So our focus is on the video games industry, not the gambling industry, but the video games industry and the film industry. We created the world's first video game school back in '96, and our approach is our method at how we teach is being accepted by many universities across the world, and it's now very common for universities to offer game degrees, video game degrees, and so on. Now, we've helped to take the Australian video game industry from turning over tens of millions to over $4 billion since our existence through our training and investments in youth. So how do we create 1/3 of the entire video game industry across Australia? And what are the training academies? So we did this by investing in the industry association, the industry conference. We birthed these entities largely in Melbourne and really helping the Victorian industry grow. And we've created and helped many international publishers to come to Australia and create jobs. So we've probably created about 200 startups through our incubators, both in Canberra, in Adelaide, in Sydney, and Melbourne. And largely our focus has been largely in Melbourne, Sydney, and Adelaide. And we're sort of a little bit frustrated because we've not been able to purchase the land and get us act together in Canberra. And now this master plan is really our gift to Canberra. Right? So our learning approach is really a simulated model. We have programmers, artists, game designers, project managers, and they work together to create video games. And ultimately, they can move into our incubators. They're provided free grant money. We don't have equity in any of their companies, anything like that. And we also work with our industry partners to create films. And in fact, last year or 2 years ago, we created a film called Sissy, which was nominated in the Australia's the Actor Awards, is like our Oscars. We're up against Baz Luhrmann and George Miller. And we were nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Lead Actress. And our students have worked on those projects, and they did, visual effects work, a whole bunch of different things, and they were paid for it. Right? So we work with our partners to create these jobs, right? So that's our heart. And basically, our master plan, is really about creating jobs and opportunities for our kids. And when I say kids, we're talking about Year 12 leavers who enroll as well as adult learners. Can we get the next slide? So really the vision that we have is really about creating a site, a location where you can ultimately live, you can play, you can learn, and you can actually have a job on the site, effectively to create both video games as well as commercial films. And we do that really through our partnerships. Our vision also is to create accommodation for our students so they can actually do that. And really create really a really good global headquarters for the Academy as we help other governments across the nation and across the world to do the similar things for their students. It's really important for us to have a hub in Canberra where we can experiment some of the new methods that we want to do. And in particularly in the film industry, what you'll see is we're going to have a really strong focus in creating student production halls and student workshops so we can teach these new methodology in film development. So one of the things that we've done is we've launched the world's first virtual production courses, a new method of making movies. It's how Disney and the big entities do these big films. And we're teaching this methodology in Canberra, in Sydney, in Melbourne, and Adelaide. But what we're doing is bringing a specialist location, you could say, that will actually train Canberran students on how to make these big films with our industry partners and learn the skills that Hollywood wants and what Disney and other major entities in Australia need in terms of the skill set. So we're really taking the Australian film industry to another level, and that will all happen in Canberra. And it's basically my gift to Canberra. So, this is, my legacy in a sense, you could say, of what I'm trying to create for Canberra so that a lot of jobs are created for our youth. I'll leave the next slide to Casey.
Thanks very much for that, John. That was great. Just checking before I move on to the next slide. Can everybody see a laser pointer floating
Yes,
around in the
we
middle of their
can.
screen? Wonderful. That is great. Moving on. So I'd just like to give you a bit of site context before we go through the changes, in particular for anybody who's not familiar with our previous approved future intentions plan or wasn't able to attend any of the consultations in relation to that. The future intentions plan was approved in December 2021 officially. And I think Tanya touched on this before, but it describes the development to be carried out on the site, including the scale and the staging of the development. So on this context plan here, the red dotted line shows the development site. So just around this area here. And we have actually made changes as part of the stage 1 portion of the development envelope, which is actually our stage 1 development. So just on this block here. Okay, so this master plan concept image, the one on the left, so I've got a before and after shot here. The image on the left is actually an extract of the master plan from our approved future intentions plan, so over this side, and the image on the right on this side is the revision. Now, as I mentioned before, all the changes are in relation to stage 1, and I'm just going to talk you through a summary of those key changes. While I do that, I'll actually keep this before and after shot up on the screen because I think it just helps to give a bit of context in relation to the changes for the buildings and how we've shuffled that round slightly. So the first change is actually that we've removed student accommodation from stage 1. We're still intending to do future accommodation for the future stages 2 and 3. So in the previous future intentions plan, I might just shorten that to FIP. So when I say FIP, that's what I'm talking about. So in that previous plan, we had student accommodation here. And in the revised plan, there is no student accommodation in stage 1, but we still have it up here in blue, these 2 blue buildings. Okay. So the second change that we're making is that the student production hall A has been moved to the opposite side of the driveway. And because we've done that, we've also been able to marginally increase the size of that. So student production hall A on the previous plan is this building that I'm circling here. And on the right, revised plan on the right-hand side, it's been shifted to the other side here where I'm circling. So the previous footprint of that building was approximately 860 metres squared, and the revised footprint is 1,300 metres squared. The third change that we're making is that building A has actually been reduced to a 2-storey building. And as a result of that change to 2 stories, we've needed to increase the footprint. And that building's also been moved across to roughly where the student accommodation was. So in the previous future intentions plan, you can see the building 2 here that I'm hovering over. That was our building A, which was our primary campus building. It's now been moved across into this position here, also labelled building 2.
How tall was it before, Casey?
It was previously 4 stories. So the approximate height has come down to around about 12 metres from 15 metres, but it depends in different sections of the building on an articulated facade. So there will be some design elements that may go above that height, and we will be providing some more detailed information as part of our online sessions when we get to our more detailed community consultation. So yeah, previously 4 down to 2. Now there's been a footprint change, as I mentioned. So when it was 4 stories, the footprint was 1,700 metres squared approximately. And the revision to that footprint is approximately 3,000 metres squared. Now that's a maximum footprint size. There is a slight possibility or a probable possibility even of there being a further decrease in the building A footprint, but that really just depends on the level of partner pre-commitments with respect to the programs that John was talking about before that we have in place at the time that we're ready to hit the go button for the development application documents. So what we've presented here in this revision is the largest possible footprint for that building. The fourth change is that we've moved forward to stage 1, the production hall, workshop and amenities. Now they've been moved into the original location of the student production hall. So on the previous plan, I mentioned this was where the student production hall is, where my laser pointer's pointing at. And on the revised drawing, we now have our workshop and film amenities taking up that footprint. Now these changes have enabled us to increase the surface level parking and extend our student boulevard area through to the student entry as part of building A. So we have had some design improvements there. So you can see in our original future intentions plan, we had this little bit of parking here. and we had most of our reliance on utilising the surface level parking, which is currently attached to the Canberra Technology Park, which is over on this block here. So we still intend to use that overflow car parking, but we've been fortunate enough to be able to squeeze in more parking into this space here, which is labelled with a 1. And I've got a bigger image of this slide in a tick, so we'll skip to that. So that's been a really great benefit for us, and it's also enabled us to carry this boulevard. It runs all the way through down into this section here, which will actually be the primary student entry there. So I should also mention when talking about parking that our traffic and parking calculations are currently being reassessed and revised by our traffic consultant based on these revisions. So we will have more comprehensive information available very soon about that. And the last key change that I wanted to mention was just in relation to the timeline adjustments. I think Tanya touched on those briefly before. So for our commencement and completion dates of stage 1 and 2, there's been some adjustments to that. So stage 1 was initially going to be completed by December this year. We're now aiming to submit our development application for stage 1 later this year and to commence our building next year. Now I'm going to go into more detail about that revised timeline in a couple of slides' time. So just this slide, so these slides, I won't go over these because I've just basically spoken through those, but as I mentioned, I wanted to have the before and after shots available while I did that. And we'll make a copy of this presentation available to everybody, but I'll just mention we've got more precise figures in there. So I was rounding when I was talking through those sizes. So you'll have that information available to you, and that'll also come with this larger image, which is the revised master plan building uses here in larger format so that you can see it with the legend. It's a little bit fuzzy, but if you get the digital copy, you should be able to zoom in on that. And yeah, in the future, next week, we'll have some higher res versions of this available from our community site as well. So as an overall comparison, the building footprint for that stage 1 actually remains about the same. That might sound surprising with all those changes, but it is about the same. It was previously about 5,600 and it's revised to 5,400. What has changed significantly is the gross floor area. So there's actually been a reduction in the gross floor area. So that's come down to about 8,000 square metres from a prior 17,000 square metres. So, and again, as I mentioned, we could see a small further reduction in that depending on the end size of building A. Okay, so this next issue, sorry, give me one moment. So this next slide is actually the master plan concept, which shows the before and after of how we anticipate pedestrians and cyclists would interact with the site. I think we've just got a message coming through there. Might come back to those questions in a tick. But yeah, so the one on the left, again, is the before shot, and the one on the right is the new shot. The revised plan, sorry. And there's a little bit of a legend on here, which basically just shows that any red dotted line shows what the anticipated pedestrian permeability for the site would be. And the green dotted line is showing where the Garden City cycle route runs according to the plans that were released. And you can see in this revised image, we've just dropped in there a copy of the ACT government's Inner North Play Space. So I just wanted to highlight, I suppose, that this orange area that you can see here in this image is merely highlighting a future opportunity for us to show movies if the community would like that. We could potentially project those off the back of one of our production halls. However, there's absolutely no encroachment on that inner north play space. It is just highlighting that potential future opportunity. And again, in the slide pack, you'll see a larger image of the revised drawing. And I am almost at the end before I hand this back to Tanya. Thank you all for your patience. So much like I think UC was saying about their master plan, this is a long-term project with a staged delivery over a 20-year period for us. Still 3 stages. Tanya's already, I think, covered the previous precinct deed and the future intentions plan. I will point out that our Crown lease was issued in April 2022, and which actually, when you think about it, especially considering everything that's happened in the world since then, wasn't too long ago. And shortly after that, we commenced our detailed design process. And as part of that process, we realised that we did need to make some amendments to the master plan. So we are now consulting about those changes, and you can see by this arrow here, consultation is where we're at in that process, and our official program will start on the 20th of May, and Tanya will tell you more about that. This is a little bit of a sneak preview, I guess you could say. We plan to submit the revised future intentions plan at the end of June after that consultation closes, and that will enable the government about a month to consider and hopefully approve our revised plan. And once we have that approval, we'll then submit a development application that reflects the revised future intentions plan. And hopefully sometime between November 24 and March 25, we will hope to have both our DA and our BA approvals granted. And we would commence the development of stage 1 around April 25, with an anticipated completion before December 2026. We will be hoping to try and secure an early occupancy over the production hall facilities so that we can start to build capacity with those projects. We'll see how that goes. And the stage 2 development would commence by 2029. So that commencement date has been pushed out a little bit, but there's no changes to the commencement date at this stage to stage 3 development. We'd still be aiming to commence that by 2036 as we originally planned. Still in keeping with that.
Move it along a bit, please.
Yep. No worries. So I'll hand over to Tanya so she can quickly take you through that consultation process. And over to you, Tanya.
Next slide, please.
Yep, there we go.
So there's going to be a consultation from the 20th of May to the 14th of June, and there'll be several activities during that period. There's on the 20th of May, that's the start date of the consultation, there'll be a letterbox drop to a 2-kilometre radius of the AIE. There will be the AIE, the open day. There's going to be a session, a full open day at the AIE on the 25th of May. And there'll be a stall there. There'll be 2 online meetings. There'll be 2 pop-ups at the Watson shops. There'll be a survey. There'll be a 1-800 and email feedback, and the website will be updated. Casey, just there I noticed the website is not as prominent, but the website is www.community.aie.edu.au. That'll be on the flyer that comes into your letterboxes. Next slide, please. So just a bit more detail there about the dates. I'll forward this presentation to Ian so that that can be up on your website as well. So as you can see there, open day on the 25th, online meeting 1 on the 28th in the evening, online meeting 2 midday on the 30th of May. Watson shops pop up, the first one on Friday the 7th of June at 3:30 and the next one on the 8th of June in the morning on the Saturday at 10 a.m.
Tanya, we'll put those on our website, so we don't need to go through those anymore.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Tanya, and also John and Casey. Much appreciated. I do have a bit of a conflict of interest here because my son did go to AIE and do go through the course there against his father's wishes, and now he's a successful digital nomad traveling the world and working on YouTube and movies. Much to my chagrin, he didn't become an accountant, but dads don't always get it right. So what we'll do is we'll ask a few questions. We might start off with Simon, and then we'll quickly go to the chat.
Yeah.
A couple of questions, Casey. The impact on the trees on Windire and Phillip Avenue, given the much larger footprint of the new building. And secondly, one of the issues that came up very strongly from community in 2020 was the issue of parking. Has that been addressed at all, or is it still the same issue?
So I'll start with your first question, Simon, just briefly. So we've had an landscape architect currently reviewing our former tree assessment study. I actually received the updates to that this afternoon, and they have commenced work on the revisions to the landscape master plan that we presented in the previous future intentions plan. So we will have some revised images to talk about in those upcoming consultation sessions that will show the updated proposed removals and replant strategy. So it is true with that larger footprint of the building that it will have an impact, and we would propose to be offsetting that through those additional plantings to still try and hit that 30% increased tree canopy target that we previously committed to. So more information coming on that very, very soon. And to your second point about the parking, we also have our updated parking and traffic study being done by our previous traffic consultant based on these changes to the master plan. So we will be having some updated information there. With the removal of the student accommodation from stage 1, we will see a decrease in the volume of people on the site for stage 1. So I think that will really only improve the parking situation. And as I mentioned, we have been able to gather additional space through that plan for parking. So we hope to see some good benefits there. But again, more details to come in those future sessions that we'll be doing over the coming weeks.
Is the plan to reduce the level of student accommodation from what your original plan had?
At this stage, the plan is just to do those 2 student accommodation buildings that were shown in stages 2 and 3. So we don't have any current intention to add an additional student accommodation building there. We will be guided via our deed in terms of minimum and maximum, or actually not minimum numbers with student accommodation, but maximum student accommodation. We have a set level that we can't exceed.
So
we definitely
overall,
wouldn't be
it'll be a
exceeding
reduction
those.
of about a third. Is that right?
I think that first building, I would need to check the numbers to confirm whether that was a third, but approximately that should be about right.
Yep. Sorry, I'm only ballparking. I don't have the previous stuff in front of me. So, yep. Thanks, Casey.
Simon.
Sue has her hand up, Casey.
Sue, can you?
Yes, thank you very much. I've been involved in consultations on this since about 2019. I just have a few questions about the updates, particularly about parking. There was talk about having underground parking for about 400 cars. Is that still going on?
So, Sue, the underground parking that you're referring to, we definitely did propose that as a solution in stages 3 of the build, once we built on the footprint of that current parking that's part of the Canberra Technology Park site. I'll just, I'm going to bring up an old image very, very quickly for context. So you can see on this old image, obviously it hasn't got the updated stage 1, but you can see here in yellow, these yellow parts are actually proposed basement parking under those buildings once they get built.
But when would that be? You know, in 10 years' time, 15 years' time?
Yeah, that's a long way out. So most of this parking would go in as part of the stage 3 of the development, which I think when we were looking at that timeline was around 2036.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the car parking that ACU is creating. You've got like 150, 200 cars up Phillip Avenue and down Anthill Street on busy days, most days there. So we're going to get the same thing on Phillip Avenue. And also because also the current car park that's there is chock-a-block with, you know, over 100 more cars, even on a Saturday morning by 7:30 in the morning when you come back from the farmers markets. There's can be dozens of cars there already at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. So where are these students going to go?
So they'd be using the existing car parking on site plus the additional surface level parking that we've managed to get onto that stage 1 development. There is a little bit of room permissible on Phillip Avenue outside the front of the premises. It's very, very rarely used at this stage. We maybe get 5 or 6 cars out the front on our highest usage day of the site.
How many students are being proposed to be on? How many students use the facility now? How many? It'd be useful to know for the consultation what the estimated student numbers are for each stage or parts of the stage. You know, how many will be coming onto there, and in terms of usage plus staff.
Yeah, sure, Sue.
People work into the nights as well, don't they?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense, Sue. And we do feed these numbers to the traffic consultant who's working on those plans for us. So they definitely take that data into consideration when they're developing what our needs are for the site. So yeah, we'll look to provide further information on that in these upcoming sessions.
I also have a question about setbacks, which were the big issues back in 2019-20, particularly on Phillip Avenue, but I'd like to know what the setback is for that L-shaped building on the far southern end, on the corner of Phillip Avenue and Windale Street.
Yep,
and
sure.
Why is it so close to the pavements to sightline. It's going to be it's a big, bulky, long building with no, well, it looks very harsh in that area when you could have lots of trees and urban forest going across that corner and softening the whole look and making it far more reflective of what is further on down the street and also going to be in that play space.
You've also got a 3 metre wide Garden City bike path corridor going up that left-hand side of Windire.
Yep, we can see that Garden City path in this drawing here. So I guess
so what's the building where the building is?
Yep. So in response to the placement of the building, it is essentially so that we can get the footprint that we need to be able to bring the building height down to 2 stories. It does have some benefits attached to it in that it will be well below the tree line. We're not touching any of the verge trees. There is a very small encroachment proposed just down on this corner here onto the verge. It's about, I'm not sure of the number off the top of my head, but it's, I don't know, 30 centimetres, 60 centimetres, something like that, proposed just in this little bit here. But we're definitely for the remainder behind the setback in that building. And as I mentioned before, and I don't know if John, if you want to jump in here, but there is future potential for us to be reducing this footprint a little bit further, depending on partner pre-commitments. So yeah, really it's just about being able to do an affordable build with the amount of space that we need for our classrooms and our partners, so that we've got a cohesive site that achieves its vision.
What we might do, rather than, sorry, John, I'm just conscious of time and the meetings usually finish at 8:30. What we might do is to just pick those 2 points up and we can get you guys to actually maybe send us some information, Tanya, just about those 2 issues,
Yes.
and particularly the impact on that the bike path seems to be an issue, just spatially. So what I might do is, if it's, unless you've got some a very important point to make, we might wrap your session up, and then people can engage further on those sessions that you've got planned on the campus and around Watson, etc., to pick those points up, because I think they seem to be pretty important points, and you will need to address them at some stage.
Yes, thank you, Ian. I think that should work. By the time by next Monday, we should have more information, so we'll be able to answer your queries in more detail by then, when the landscapers and the parking traffic people have finished their work.
Great, thanks, Tanya. If you've got any more questions, Sue, if you want to shoot them to me, I'll pass them on and we'll get them addressed back and forth.
I would just like to raise the issue about trees. That was a very big issue back a few years ago, and also about the setbacks. I'm also concerned about the very rushed state of the consultation that's coming up. It's a very short period of time. A lot of people are away or going away, and getting that information out to people that these options for consultation are available is going to be very, very difficult. Like having a pop-up at Watson Shops 2 days in a row instead of different weekends, for example. You know, that's a problem. Anyway.
Yeah, so we'll answer that too. We have some deadlines we have to meet with the ACT government, but I'll answer that more fully later.
And Jane, your point about can you have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? I think, Tanya, you've committed to shoot us a copy of that.
Yes, I'll do that tonight.
And you'll also have that on your website?
Yes, from Monday the 20th, it will go live. There'll be lots of information on the website that will be updated. If you go to the website tonight, you won't find any changes, but from Monday morning, you will have all the information.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Tanya, John and Casey. I'm glad it worked through Teams for you. That seemed to work pretty well, and everyone who's used to driving Zoom, obviously you can make a change in a week and still be looking good. Thanks, everyone. What we'll do is we'll
Thanks,
end
Ian.
the presentation there. And if the committee members that are still here, if you want to hang about, we'll just go quickly through a couple of housekeeping things for the committee. And thanks everyone for coming along tonight. Really appreciate, especially the people who came live. There are still real humans out there. They're not digital or avatars. Always good to see. And thanks very much for UC. And thank you, Gonzalo. Really appreciate you driving all the machinery, because for the dinosaurs in the room, it was really helpful. Okay.
Thanks,
Right.
Ian.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.